I just wanted something to knit on. Like I got 3 inches of knitting done this week, and now I'm like, now I'm gonna get it all done. And I just knit, 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 knit.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me for another podcast episode. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, I'm Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I have officially been knitting for 1 year now. You might know that if you caught my Everything I Knit This Year video in 2023. And yeah, I just wanted to... Oh, she's back. So thank you so much for coming to join the party over here. Basically, I have just fallen in love with knitting over the past year, and I really enjoy sharing my excitement, my enthusiasm for the craft over here on this channel, and really sharing the message that I like to hold with my knitting hobby, that I'm not taking things too seriously. I really am here to have fun. And one of the main themes that I always like to focus on is that the imperfections are what makes something so perfectly handmade. So if that sounds like something that you can get on board with, then I hope that you will keep on coming back to hang out with us again. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. I am, of course, wearing my Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. I knit this last summer using Malabrigo Susuro in my favorite colorway, Frank Ochre. I really haven't gotten a ton of wear out of this just because I wrapped it up a little bit later in the season than I feel like this fabric calls for. However, that being said, it's so light and airy, and just it's a comfy fabric. I couldn't recommend this more if you are someone who lives in a warmer climate, or if you, like myself, maybe run on the warmer side and wearing a full sweater would just be too much. This is such a nice option for just a nice lightweight go-to throw-on piece. So this is my Ranunculus, and yeah, love that one. So let's go ahead and get into our whips, because the last podcast that I did was really all about my Christmas dress that I just finished. And I have made some progress now in those 2 weeks since we last spoke about these other whips that I have. I do usually like to go in order from the whip that has been on my needles the longest to the newest one. So we could start today with my Corsaven cardigan by Tanya Hodney, and this project has been on my needles for a whopping 155 days. Yikes. The good news is, since the last time you saw it, I have made some significant progress on it. So this is a bottom up basket weave cardigan, and in the original pattern it features these sort of balloon-like sleeves where you have a rapid decrease at the cuff and then you continue on with your ribbing. However, I've knit this cardigan once before, and this is my second version, and I wanted to just make a couple of changes to fill the void that I have for this style in my wardrobe. So first things first, I am knitting this in Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the colorway Oatmeal, which is this just sort of stone colored gray. It's slightly on the warmer side of a gray. I wouldn't quite call it a grayish, but I have noticed recently the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool Oatmeal in stores, I feel like looks way warmer a beige than the yarn that I have. So if you are liking this colorway, just proceed with caution when you go to find it in the stores. But at the moment, I have actually finished entirely both sleeves, which the last time you saw it, it would have had half of one sleeve and then nothing on the other. So all I have left to do at this point is the button band. Now let's start with just talking about the sleeves really quick. So like I said, I wanted to modify this pattern. I just felt like with this like cooler color. I didn't really want that flouncier, more balloon-like sleeve. I wanted something that was going to have just a more traditional taper to it. However, I didn't want it to be so snug at the cuff. And so I did a little bit of reworking in the sleeve decreases. Being that in the original pattern, you do just rapid decrease at the cuff. And what I chose to do instead was knit the sleeve to about the elbow. And then I sort of mathed out my decreases. And what I wound up doing was every third row, I decreased by 2 stitches, and that I knit the first 2 stitches of the round together. And then the last 2 stitches of the round, I did slip, slip, knit to, I think, get me that sort of like triangular decrease shape. I had never made changes in a sleeve decrease before. And actually, come to think of it, have the sweaters, I think that most of the sweaters that I've done have had a balloon sleeve or just like no decreases in the sleeve. I don't know that that's true, but I feel as though I would do it differently if I was doing this again. So I really thought that I should leave the whole upper arm at the circumference that it starts at, and then only start my decreases at the elbow. But I feel like it it did give me this kind of funky shape where you could pretty clearly tell where I started the decreases. And then obviously that's kind of sloping here. Now, I think once it's blocked and also once it's on my body, it's not quite as obvious, but that's something I would have probably done differently. I also, when I was just so focused on like making sure I was decreasing at this new rate, because it took me a little trial and error to figure out exactly how much I was going to decrease. So then I was just like, all right, make sure you're decreasing every third row. And the basket weave pattern is made up of knits and purls. And I don't know why, but when the purl stitch was part of the decreases, I still just decreased by doing a slip, slip, knit, where I feel like I should have done a slip, slip, purl. But again, I really wasn't worried about this. I feel like a little bit it was just get the sleeves done, because this project has been on the needles for too long. And I just want it to be done. So I'm not really, like, I don't actually care what the underarm looks like. Like, it doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, then you take the time to do that. But I can't be bothered. That's how I'm feeling a little bit. Now, I did, in the pattern, like I said, you do rapid decrease at the cuff and then knit the ribbing. So I wound up decreasing down to the amount of stitches that you're supposed to decrease to just at the cuff, but over the course from the elbow to the cuff. And then I just went ahead and knit the ribbing, which in my first corsage cardigan that I knit, I know that my ribbing is more like 1 inch long, whereas for this, I really wanted to try and match the width of the ribbing on the hem. So this is the ribbing on the hem, and then this is the ribbing on the cuff. So they're about the same length, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. I went ahead and did an Italian bind off, the tubular Italian bind off with the setup rows on the end of the cuff. And yeah, overall, I am pleased. Let me count for you. So I wound up doing a total of 16 basket weave rows. So each basket weave being 1 row. And that was what I did to make up the sleeve. And then, yeah, the little cuff is about 3 inches on the cuff. So overall, pretty pleased, so basic. And yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So I was able to get both sleeves done. And now all I have left to do is the double knit button band. So again, the original pattern calls for a ribbed button band. However, I really, again, going back to just like classic basic, want to have a double knit button band on this one. And I also was just thinking about how wide do I actually want to knit the button band? I feel like it should be sort of relative to the dimensions of the basket weave. So I'm thinking that my button band should be about the width of maybe 2 of these basket weave rows, just so that it feels like it calls back to the pattern a little bit better. And I feel like it would be nice to have a fairly hefty button band. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I think I'm putting it off still again because I'm just it's a little bit daunting to do the double knit button band. I've never done that before. I am going to be looking up this week a few different tutorials. The ones that I'm planning to look into are the one by Handmade by Florence, the double knit button band that Kotova Kika had put out. I think that's with her Darling cardigan. And I also have heard a lot of people talking recently about whoever does the tutorials for petite knits patterns. Apparently there's one where there's a double knit button band, but you don't have to break the yarn to do the actual buttonholes. So I'm gonna really sit down and kind of observe and study those tutorials and then pull from those what is gonna be the best plan of attack. What I'd love to know from you is, should I block the cardigan before I do the double knit button bands? I know I've seen some people talking about how the tension in the double knit button band versus the tension in the overall cardigan can be so different and can cause for some like rippling or bowing or just like weird things happening in said button band. So if you have some experience in this department and you want to let me know, should I block this or at least seam block it before I go ahead and do the button band, or is that not necessary? Let me know, and I think I will put off actually starting this until I hear back from you guys. So yeah, that is the Corshaven cardigan. On the needles, like I said, for 155 days, but I am so determined to get this done. I'd love to get this done by the end of the month. That'd be fantastic. All right, so the next whip that I have that's been on my needles the longest is the Muscle Brutes by Isolde Teague, and I am knitting this for my boyfriend using hedgehog fibers, skinny singles, and the colorway Orca. I don't know, that seemed like such a mouthful today. This project has officially been on my needles for 40 days today. I don't know why that is like something, I feel like I just cast this on. But this has been my go-to just simple stockinette in the round project during my hustle to get my Christmas dress done in time. I really did totally neglect this project, doing almost no knitting on it for the last couple of weeks in December. That is up until the point when I finished the Christmas dress. And I really needed something to just kind of fall back on and just like to have knitting in my life, but without worrying. I wasn't ready just yet to really focus on the Corshaven because there was still some thought involved. I just wanted something to knit on. And so I totally did fall back onto my Muscle Brutes, and that is how I have made a good bit of progress since the last time we spoke. So here on top of my hand is the Progress Keeper. And so it looks like I've probably done a good 3 inches or so of knitting on this since we spoke last. In fact, I can just go ahead and measure it for you. Wow, that was dead on. It's 3 inches exactly. So in the past 2 weeks, since you last saw this project, I've made about 3 inches of progress on it. I am knitting this on the Addi Turbo fixed circulars, and I believe that these are the 3mm needles. I don't love that these don't say what it is on the needles themselves. I think that it's actually on the cord where it says the size of the needle. So I believe that's what this is. And I am following the adult medium for whatever my gauge was on this. I'll have to double check all of that, and I'll make sure that I put that in the Ravelry page when I finish this, especially if it turns out to be something that he likes, because I'll want to recreate it, I think. And so yeah, I've made 3 inches of progress on this. And more importantly, what's kind of exciting is I decided to at some point weigh the yarn. This is where I'm at as far as how much yarn I have left, and it looks like so much. So I was like, oh, I'm sure I'm nowhere near halfway. But this should have been, which I didn't weigh it when I bought it, and I know I should have. But this should have been about 100 gram skein. And so I figured at some point I should start weighing to see if I was halfway through, because the way that this hat is knit up is in this sort of what I'm calling like a pill capsule shape, where you've got the rounded end and then you knit all the way to the other rounded end, and then you fold one side into another. So if you can imagine one of those dissolvable pill capsules where each half is like a different color, then one of those halves gets tucked away inside of the other. So I figured I should kind of be aware of when I hit that like halfway point. And when I measured this or weighed this the other day, I already had, I think it was actually 47 grams that this weighed in at, which it looks like there's so much yarn here. Like this really doesn't look like it has whittled down at all. So I was kind of shocked to see that already more than half of the yarn was gone. And so I popped in this little blue marker when I weighed it so that I would have at least a little bit of an idea to gauge when I should start doing my decreases. And so now I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it. I will do my best to kind of reference the blue marker to then the point where the increases stopped on this side. And I think I will be a little cautious with this one as far as trying to leave myself a little bit more yarn than I think I actually need to do the decreases, but just to avoid having to go back. But yeah, this has just been really nice to have on the needles. I did figure I could measure or I could weigh this for you now. So right now, this yarn is weighing in at 38 grams. So yeah, I think maybe I'm sure I could use that to reference and do a little math as far as how many inches I could knit to get to the decreases and all of that. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and move our progress keeper so that next week we could see how much progress was made. Progress keeper has been moved. We will see, maybe by the next time we speak, we'll already be at the decreases. Who knows? That'd be pretty ambitious, huh? Like I got 3 inches of knitting done this week, and now I'm like, now I'm going to get it all done. But yeah, this has been really nice to have as just something so simple after the whole busyness of the Christmas dress. So this is my
muscle bruise
old fatigue, and we will see where that's at next week. Now, in more exciting news, I have a new cast on that you haven't seen, and it has been all consuming. If you had seen my winter knitting plans video, then you will know that this is something that I thought I would love to knit before the end of winter. And I really hadn't thought about it too much more. In fact, when I sat down to make that video, I thought, I really should knit this. But I didn't think I would get around to it. And then the more I thought about it, I figured, no, make this a priority over everything else. That being a sweater for my dad. When you hear the term knit-worthy, you think of the people who will really appreciate a handmade good, at least maybe, okay, so for me personally, someone who's knit-worthy is someone who will appreciate the handmade garment or thing or whatever it may be, who will wear it with pride, who will enjoy it and use it. And that person 100% for me is my dad. Last year for his birthday, I sewed him a shacket, and it was pretty funny because when I gifted it to him, he loved it. And he was like, wow, this is so nice. And he really was loving it. And the next day, my mom called me and she was like, did you make that? And I said, yeah, it says like, I thought that was clear that I had made it. But my mom said, I don't think your dad knows that. She's like, I think he thought that you bought that from the store and he really likes it, but I don't think he knows that you made it. So I called my dad up and I was like, Dad, like, do you like your shacket? He's like, yeah, honey, I love it. And I was like, no, but do you know that I made it? And he was like, yeah, you made it. He thought that I like bought a shirt from the store and like lined it for him. And I said, no, Dad, I sewed that. Like the whole thing was made. And he's like, you made that? I said, yeah. And I swear every time I've seen him since, he's been wearing the shacket. And I've been out with him in the store and he's wearing it. And he's like, oh, my daughter made this. So I knew I had to knit something for my dad. My dad has a job where he usually is dressed up a little bit. And he also, goes to church and is running around, and he likes to, not that he's like a dressy guy, but when he does get dressed up, he enjoys it. And so I thought a perfect knit for him would be a quarter zip sweater. It's something I thought would really work in his wardrobe, as far as if he wanted to, he could wear it with just like jeans and loafers running out to the diner for lunch or something. Or if he wanted to dress it up, he could wear it over a button down, a tie, wear it to church, wear it to work, whatever he wanted to do with it. I thought that would work well in his wardrobe for diversity's sake. But I also figured if I knit it in a nice dark color, it would give him more opportunity to dress it up, which I think would work for him and his lifestyle. So I had come across the pattern Learn to Knit a Men's Sweater by Stacey Perry, and that's Very Pink Knits. And it just was like, I mean this in a very kind way. When I look at the sweater, I'm like, that's a dad sweater. That is totally like the epitome of dad sweater. Looks like something maybe you bought at Kohl's or like Brooks Brothers or something. It just has a classic look to it, but it's not boring. So that's what I decided to go with. So I went ahead and I bought the pattern. And then over the past week, my boyfriend and I took a little road trip to one of my favorite yarn stores, which is Webb's. It's in Massachusetts and it's not too far a drive for us. So we took a little journey there. And I was specifically looking for the yarn that I wound up buying. However, I made sure to check every crevice of that store to see if they had something that would be better. I asked the employees, and I wound up leaving with the yarn that I went there to buy. So that is Cascade Yarns 220 Superwash. This is the worsted weight version. And the colorway is a number, it's 1913. It is this really neutral charcoal gray. It has a little bit of heathering where there are some bits of a lighter gray, sometimes even like white that come through. And then the depth of the twist has a very dark, cool gray, cool charcoal gray. I really struggled. I think I pulled every single charcoal gray yarn that they had that would work for this pattern. And also specifically that would be superwash, because I don't expect my dad to really baby this. So I wanted to go with something superwash for him. I pulled, I think, every different brand superwash, worsted weight, charcoal gray yarn, and a lot of them lean a super, like they look blue. And that was something I knew I really didn't want. So I wound up going with, like I said, the one that I really thought I was going to want is this Cascade Yarns. I purchased 8 balls of these at Webb's. They are $9, or at least they were there, $9.20 a piece. But when you purchase yarn through Webb's, this is also, it's yarn.com. So when you purchase yarn through them, if you purchase, I think it's like $60 or more. I don't know. There's a threshold that if you purchase over the threshold, you get a percentage off. So they wound up coming to 20% off, which means that when everything was said and done, the total for the 8 balls came to $73.60. And I went into it figuring I would knit my dad the size large, but purchased a quantity that would be closer to the size extra large. And I'm hoping that that's going to be enough, because now I've made some modifications. So, okay, that's the yarn. I did a gauge swatch, kind of. My typical gauge swatch kind of looks like this, where while this probably does meet the qualifications of a 4x4 swatch, half of it was done in one needle size and half of it was done in the other. This pattern is intended to be knit on US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles. And I actually swatched in both a 4.5 millimeter and a 4 millimeter needle, and wound up preferring getting gauge with the 4 millimeter needle with this yarn, and also preferring the look of it. So 2 things on this yarn so far. One, it's the kind of yarn, it's a very bouncy, it's very stretchy. So when you're working with it, you could either have, if you're like a tighter knitter, I think you could really be stretching the yarn and pulling it in that stretched way around your needles and knitting it that way. Or you could let it stay relaxed and it's a plumper than yarn. So I was struggling with that a little bit, and then I did wash and block this, and I expected it to bloom more than it did. Sorry, I'm like swinging this around, but I did expect it to bloom more than it did in both of the needle sizes. However, in both of them, I could clearly see holes and light coming through. Like the yarn did not open up and fill in those gaps at all. At all. I figured, okay, maybe I overblocked this a little bit. I know superwash tends to have more sort of stretch to it. So maybe when I was pinning this, I was just too aggressive and really opened up the stitches too much, and then they sort of stayed that way. But it's also just seems to be the kind of nature of this yarn. Um, it didn't change the fact that it was what I wanted to use to knit this sweater, and I did get gauge. So that's just something to note, I think. Now, I think you can see when I show you the close-ups here that if you hold this swatch up to the light, you can see the light coming through, like clear as day, straight through it. However, as soon as you put something behind it, you really can't tell that it's see-through. Like even holding it up to my, fluorescent yellowy green sweater, I can't really see the yellow green behind it. So I figured with a quarter zip sweater, of course, you're always going to wear it over something, be it a t-shirt or a button down. And so I figured to just go ahead and knit the sweater out of this because as long as the light isn't directly coming through, you can't see how holy it is. But that's just something that I thought I should note here. Now, I guess that there's something about coming off of a huge project like my Christmas dress and then knitting what is a top-down raglan style sweater, albeit it has the split in the front to accommodate a zipper because it is a quarter zip sweater. And it features this very long spans of ribbing. But I think that there's just something about transitioning from the intensity of the dress that I knit and the time crunch that I had to now working on this more simple sweater that I just was like, all I want to do. The past 2 days, I've done nothing but knit on this. And I mean that quite literally. I started a new show on Netflix and I just knit, 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 knit. So this has been on my needles for 5 days today, and I have made progress. Yeah. I have wanted to do literally nothing in life but knit on this sweater. So it's knit top down. You start out with your collar, which we're going to move now into the modifications that I've already made. So the collar is intended for the cast on edge or that raw edge to be the top of the collar. However, I just did not like the look of that. I cast on very loosely because that's what I've just been used to doing since most of the time I'm coming back and picking up the cast on edge. And it didn't say to do any particular cast on, so I just went ahead and did long tail cast on without even realizing that it was going to be the finished edge of the garment. So I cast on pretty loosely, and then you move into a 2x2 ribbing for that collar. And I was like, no. I also figured there was nothing I could do to make that as tidy as I would have liked for it to be. So when I realized that, and then also looking at the project pages of other people, I felt like a lot of times the collar was kind of more on the floppy side, where I would have preferred something that was a little bit more rigid. So automatically I decided I would knit double the length and then fold it down and sew it down on the inside once I was finished. So that was the first modification that I made. So you could see that my collar actually starts here at my finger and then ends obviously up here. You are supposed to knit this to about 3 inches or however tall you want the collar to be. I decided to go for more of like a 2.5 inches. My dad and I are actually about the same size. So when I was holding it up to myself, I knew it would bother me if the collar came all the way to the bottom of my chin, and I figured that would bother him too. So I just went slightly below. So I did more of a 2.5-inch collar, which means that my full collar here is knit to about 5 inches so that I could fold it down and have that be the finished collar height. Now, I also have allowed for, that's with a little bit of that discrepancy of blocking because I figure this will stretch out. The finished edge where the zipper is going to be is also knit using like an I-cord edge. And I feel like my tension there is a little more snug than the rest of the collar. And so I will definitely block that before I sew the zipper in. So then you move into the all over ribbing pattern, which it's just, again, that classic look. It looks so nice. And you are knitting flat as you are working to accommodate the zipper being in the front of the sweater. The pattern says to use a 12-inch zipper. And I'm glad that I had the wherewithal to kind of look at that and think, man, that seems like a long zipper. So I went and I measured a couple of my boyfriend's quarter zip sweaters, and one of them was using a 6-inch zipper and the other was using a 9-inch zipper. So I decided to go for actually an 8-inch zipper because that was the style that I could find that I liked the look of the zipper, and decided that would be a good like in between. So I knit according to an 8-inch zipper. So I had to knit from the halfway point of the collar 8 inches. So this whole thing should be about the 5 inches. What is it? So it would be 8. Basically 10 and a half inches is what this should be from the top of my cast on to where I wound up joining in the round to knit the rest of the raglan yoke. So moving into the raglan, it says to knit, it's a 14-row repeat, and the pattern tells you how many repeats of that 14 rounds you should do before you split for the sleeves, as one does in a raglan sweater. Because my dad and I are about the same size, I knit down to the point where the pattern said to split for sleeves, and I tried this on. And I felt like while it would fit, and of course, considering the fact that it still had to be blocked and I was stretching, I put it on the try-it-on tubing. From the get-go, I felt like my dad might be in between the sizes large and extra large. And of course, if I'm going to err on the side of caution, I would prefer it to be a little bit too big on him than too small or snug. And it could lean more of just a casual sweater for him if that's the case. And I could always knit him a more formal version if need be. But I also felt like if I knit to the size extra large, it would be too big on him. So what I decided to do was, in the large size, the pattern says to knit 5 repeats of the 14 rounds. For the extra large, it said to knit 5 repeats plus the next 10 rounds of the pattern. In the size double XL, it said to knit 6 repeats of the 14 round patterns plus 4 more rounds. So what I decided to do was knit the 5 rounds of the repeat, or 5 repeats of the 14 round sequence, and then an additional 4 repeats, kind of following the double XL sizing guidelines. That way I could proceed with the underarm and the splitting for sleeves, following the instructions for adding additional stitches under the arms. I could follow that of the double XL to keep me in pattern of the ribbing. I hope that makes sense. It's always so hard to explain these things when you don't want to give out the information of the pattern, but essentially I knit somewhere in between the large and extra large size. And I think that should be dead on for my dad. I also figured if it does wind up being a little bit too big, it's probably for the better because I don't want to block this quite as aggressively as I did my swatch, which got me on gauge. So the hope is that I'm knitting this like slightly under gauge, therefore it coming out slightly smaller, but therefore compensating for that by knitting it just a little bit bigger than the size I think my dad would be. And so far, I think that's working out. Like I said, I was able to try this on. My dad and I are the same size. That was how when I sewed him the shacket, I just based it off of my own measurements and it fit him perfectly. Where we're at now is that I've recently split for the sleeves and I have since knit maybe an inch under the arm, and so I'm working on the body. The next modification that I think I'm going to make is that this design features the I-cord bind off on the cuffs as well as the hem. Again, after looking at some of the project photos and just sort of thinking about the way my dad might want to wear this, I believe that I am going to do actually the 2x2 ribbing for all of the hems, for all of those finishes. I think that that's going to be a little bit more versatile for him. I also think that it takes it from being more of a casual knit to a dressier one. However, it could still be casual if he wants it to be, but that's, I think, going to give him the most versatility. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. There is a chance that I will keep the I-cord on the sleeves and only do the 2x2 on the hem. But I think at the moment I'm leaning towards just 2x2 all over. So I feel like there's a lot of information for this one, but that is where it's at right now. And I will put a progress keeper where I am at the moment so we could see how much progress I've made next week. I know I've made a ton of progress on this on the past 5 days, but I've just been really enjoying the simplicity of a raglan sweater after just a more involved knit. It's nice if you are in need of something like more mindless and simple. I cannot recommend more a raglan sweater. And also just in general, this pattern I am enjoying so far for a men's knit. So that is the Learn to Knit a Men's Sweater by Stacey Perry. Whew. All right. I feel like I have been talking to you for so long. I don't even know how long it's been now. But I did want to really quickly go over a few sort of acquisitions. Of course, I had the Cascade 220 was an acquisition. And actually the other things I'm going to show you now were gifts. First things first, Shayla from Black Pearl Magic absolutely lost her mind and spoiled me. Spoiled me rotten with just some goodies that was so generous and so kind. And these were gifted just because she is a kind person and wanted to spread the love a little bit. There's so much ridiculousness here that I want to just breeze through it because it's overwhelming. So I think that this all started, if you remember, this is a while ago now. On my Instagram, I had reached out. I was looking for a new needle organizer. And one of the ones that I had come across was Black Pearl Magic's zipper binder. And one of the things that I loved about this was, well, there's two things that I really did love about this compared to other needle organizers on the market. First thing is the fact that it's clear. I liked the idea of being able to just glance at the binder without having to open it and fuss around in it to see if the needles that I was looking for were in there or the notions or whatever it may be. I really liked that idea. The other thing that I really liked was the fact that it is a zipper binder. I'm lazy, so lazy. So I wanted something that I had the option of, I just want to put this away, but I don't want to take the time to open the binder and find the page and open that thing and stick the thing in there. Sometimes I just want to shove something in the binder and I'll get to it later. So I like the idea of being able to shove it in, zip it up, and worry about it later. So Shayla really generously gifted me this binder in the pink colorway, and I'm honestly I'm so grateful to own this now. I did not have a way to organize my needles before this, and I have been using for the past year now the Knit Picks interchangeable wooden needle set, and those come in a very like temporary case. It got the job done of organizing them for a little bit, but that thing started to fall apart. It's so not intended for that to be long-term use. It's more just like, here, figure that out once you get them, which is probably what helps keep the cost of those needles down, but I needed a more long-term solution. I also have the Knit Picks wooden shorty needles interchangeable set, and that case literally disintegrated upon opening it the first time. And so prior to this point, I literally have had my shorties floating around in the bottom of my backpack. And that was my organization. And then the regular size interchangeable set I've just had inside of their falling apart case. So I love the idea of having one spot, especially now that I've acquired a few other little notions and things to have one space where everything fits. I love that it zips up. I love this. So thank you, Shayla, for being way too kind to me and gifting this to me along with these other things, you guys. So let's breeze through what she gifted me. So first thing is this sweet little holographic measuring tape that retracts back in. If you didn't know, my friend Jana from Knit Together with Kim and Jana actually gifted me my first little retractable tape measure from Pick Up Every Stitch, the yarn shop in Mount Kisco where they film. And I've loved having that. But what I actually love is having multiples of these because I have one upstairs for when I'm knitting in bed, and I have one in my knitting bag. And I love to have one just stashed away by the side of my couch. And I love to have one in my purse. I think that this is one of those things you genuinely can never have too many of because the more you stash them away, they come in handy so often. So love this. She also spoiled me with a few progress keepers. These are like little gummy bears, which I think is what I'm going to put into my dad's sweater to keep the progress on that. I'll give you just a close-up of these, as well as these little flower progress keepers, which are so cute and I think will come in handy in the spring. And then what she didn't know at the time was that these needle stitch stoppers or needle protectors were actually on my gifts for the knitter list of something you should gift to a knitter, because I love the simplicity of just like the little pearl. Again, my friend Jana had gifted me the little gnomes that I have had. I had that on my Christmas dress, and these I'm going to put on my needles now because of the change in the season. I feel very spoiled, you guys. So love these. They're like the little pearl stitch stoppers. Additionally, with more spoiling, Shayla gifted me my first ever project bags. I've never owned project bags, and now I have two, and they're both from Shayla. One of them is this clear, again, holographic zip-up bag, and I actually had all of the yarn for my Christmas dress inside of this. And I think now I'm going to be putting the corsage cardigan in here, literally because I want it to be kind of all kept together, but I want to be able to see it. I think it's really important for me to see my whips so that I can keep track of them and not let them fall by the wayside. So that's what's going to go back into here now that the Christmas dress is not in there any longer. And this has the cutest little like snowflake zipper. I love this thing. I've been using this for a little bit now, so love that one. She also gifted me this canvas bag, which is another project bag, and it has a drawstring as well as that like waxed canvas bottom and this like hysterical little like hippie floral print on it. This just makes me laugh. It's like such a psychedelic weirdo print that I love. The flower has a banky. I don't get it. I don't know if there's something to it, but I love it. And what I also love about this one is that it actually has the pockets on the inside. So this is where I have been storing sometimes the muscle burra hat when I just want it for bopping around the house but want to keep it contained. And this is like the perfect size for a either beginning of a bigger project, but definitely for like your hats or your socks or whatever. I love the size of this. I love that this has handles. This is perfect for me to just bop around the house and have all my stuff inside. Love it. on top of that, like, she lost her mind, guys. I'm lucky. I'm a lucky girl. She knew that I was on the hunt for yarn for my boyfriend's hat, which I wound up finding the hedgehog fibers orca, but she knew exactly what I was looking for and nailed it. This is a gray base yarn. It's an 80/20 sock yarn fingering weight from Lola Bean Yarn Co. I've never owned anything from Lola Bean Yarn Co. And I'm even just brand new with the whole like hand-dyed yarn things anyway. So this is a really nice neutral gray, a lighter gray, but it has these little speckles of red and then almost like a navy darker gray. So this must be Bean Sprout, must be their base, 80/20 merino nylon. I don't know if I must have messed this up, but it says color I'm assuming this is he who must not be named. So I ran this past my boyfriend. He loves this colorway. However, if this is a Harry Potter reference, I might have to knit something for my sister out of this. Either way, it's like the perfect masculine color. So love this and the pops of red. He has like a red shacket that he likes to wear, so I think he'd love to have this. And this one's so soft. So the hedgehog fibers yarn is actually a little bit more rough, a little bit more textured. So if he doesn't love the feel of that, I know he's gonna love the feel of this one. So I love this. I'm so excited, and it was just so thoughtful of her to think of him. Something that I thought was so sweet was that she actually had some thrifted yarn in her own stash that she decided to give to me, knowing my love for thrifting yarn. So it's really cool to me to have not only a thrifted yarn, but like double thrifted, double secondhand, third hand yarn. I love it. I thought that this was so sweet. And also this colorway is like perfection. This is the Wool Boutique Merino Variegated, and it is an unspun yarn. It's 100% pure merino wool. And this is like the most delectable little like sherbety variegated yarn. I'm loving, loving, loving this. Would this be single ply? Maybe this isn't unspun. I don't know the exact terms, but she gave me 3 of these. However, OC tore into one of them. I already repaired it, but it doesn't look quite as cute as this one looks. So OC must like it too. But these are so my colors. It's like I said, very sherbety. There's peaches and oranges. There's little baby blues and lavenders and yellows. And I think that this would go really nicely with my coat. So I would love to at some point myself, either just like a hat or like mittens. I don't know, something with these. And last but not least, from Miss Shayla, who officially has lost her mind, this is some hand-dyed yarn. It says Cake Wool Company, and look at this color. It is like this electric peach. And these are a merino and a mohair silk. I mean, the colorway is called Waking Dream. They're so soft. They're so beautiful. And it was funny because she was like, I hope you like the color. Like, I'm not sure if it's your thing, but I thought it would look great on you. What she doesn't know is that there was a time in my life where actually my hair was this color. Believe it or not. I'll see if I can find the picture where it's one of my favorite hairstyles and hair colors I've ever had. And it'll probably blow your mind a little bit because you guys don't know me in my wild days, but this is one of my favorite colors. Also, the color of the year is peach fuzz. So this is like so peachy, electric, corally. I mean, good color. I don't know what I'm going to make out of these yet, but I love them. Thank you, Shayla. I'm spoiled. I don't deserve this. I know that this is wildly generous, and I feel so lucky. And I also genuinely like stand by these products. I've been using them for a little bit now, and I'm obsessed with the binder, the bags. Haven't broken into the yarn yet, but like loving everything. Just great quality, handmade goods from a great person. So check out Black Pearl Magic if you haven't already. She didn't ask me to talk about this, by the way. I'm grateful. So thank you, Shayla. And lastly, I have another gift. However, this was a familial gift. My family does Secret Santa for Christmas. However, we usually will put on a little list some things that we might like. We have a big family, so you might get someone that you don't know what they're into. So I should mention, I know it's not Christmas anymore. I am punishing myself because I never finished our Christmas pajamas that I wanted to make for our little family. And so I am not allowed to take down the Christmas decorations until the Christmas pajamas are done so we could take our annual Christmas pajama photo. So I'm so sorry if you're not into the Christmas lights being up. We could keep the Christmas lights up till January. This is our house. We make the rules. I'm not a Swiftie, but that line's in my head. And so yeah, I'm sorry that the Christmas is still up, but I like the lights behind me anyway. And I will take it all down once Christmas pajamas are finished, which hopefully I could get. I think you'll have one more podcast with the lights in it, definitely. And then I should be able to get those done. But the last acquisition that I have was a gift from my cousin who had me for Secret Santa. And the number one thing that I really wanted for Christmas was this book. I'm so excited. I'm certain that you've seen this before, but if you haven't, this is Moosh and Friends by Cynthia Valet. And these are the most precious little hand knit animal toys. I don't have kids. I just loved these little animals, and I figured at some point, hopefully there's someone that I could pass these down to, but I don't know, they were so precious. They come with like the little stories attached to each animal. They're just the most darling little things, and I'm just so in love with this. So I was so grateful to receive this book for Christmas. And hopefully at some point this year, I can crank out one of these little friends. They're so sweet. So I'm very excited about that. So those are the acquisitions. I know that this was a lot. It was just the time of year, guys. It's Christmas. So those are my acquisitions that were gifted. Thank you so much. I also, so plans, I feel like I'm out of practice. Plans. The plans that I have for the next week are to start the button band on the corset and cardigan. I don't know how long a double knit button band will take me, but I guess we'll find out. So I'd love to start that by the next time we chat. My dad's birthday is January 31st. So like we have all month to get that done. However, I want to just keep up with the momentum of it and try to get it done as soon as possible. Just because I'm enjoying it for no other reason. I'm not in a rush, but I'd love to get that done and gift it to him on his birthday, blocked and everything. So I'm glad that I'm enjoying it, and hopefully we'll continue to. Musselburgh, keep on chugging along. Then yeah, I have a few videos that I'd love to film this month. So I'd like to just focus a little bit more on those. And otherwise, I think that's it. I don't know. I felt like I had a lot. This felt scattered. So sorry. But we needed a good catch up. All that being said, if you enjoyed this video and knitting content in general, I would love it if you would come hang out with us more often. I do post podcast videos every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you did enjoy this one, please consider giving it a thumbs up. You can certainly subscribe and ring the bell so that you could be notified when these videos are available. And yeah, I think that's all I have, you guys. Big ol' thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one. And all right. Bye.